Federal Credit Union in Longview, Washington. Shannon will be presenting her Tracking the ROI of Financial Education project. Her project is a comprehensive system to track, measure, and prove the profitability of your financial education program. Shannon Cahoon. All right.
Thank you, Tim.
You bet.
I want to kick things off by saying a quick thank you to Currency Marketing, CUES, and DDJ Myers for hosting this competition and for inviting me to be here with all of you this week. Thank you also for sharing this part of your day with me. Let's get started. Once upon a time in credit union land, there was a man who said, the most important service of the credit union is the education of its members in the management and control of their own members. That man was Roy Bergengren, the first managing director of CUNA. What Roy said in the 1920s is still true today. As credit unions, we have the unique opportunity and the imperative duty to offer our members financial education, to help them become more capable consumers, and to lead them towards living more financially stable lives. But as credit unions, we must also be able to stand before our members and guarantee an appropriate return on the programs that we offer. Because after all, our members' own money refers not only to the money in their pockets, but to our resources as their credit union. This is the mental friction from which my project was born. I wanted to create a process where credit unions could use resources we already have available to us to measure the programs that we're offering to see the impact that they're really bringing back to our bottom line. If you think about it, you know the profitability of your branches, right? You know which of your products and services are your profit and loss leaders. Isn't it time we apply that same level of understanding and examination to the programs that are taking place outside of our walls? The fact that many credit unions don't do this has led me to equate financial education with what I call the Sasquatch quandary. I'm from the Northwest, where Sasquatch is a pretty big deal. Yeah, it's okay to laugh. And the Sasquatch quandary is basically this. How many Bigfoot believers do we have with us today? Right? There's always a couple in every room, right? If you're not, why aren't you? Well, most people would say it's because of a lack of proof, right? A lack of evidence that we can experience for ourselves and hold in our own hands makes it difficult to hold anything as an absolute truth. And maybe that's why, despite the fact that we agree financial education is an important service to offer our communities, many credit unions struggle to hold this as an absolute truth as well, right? The education drives profit and not just that customer experience. So just as there have been volumes of work written to make us all Sasquatch believers, right, even current TV shows and movies, there's a great body of work that's been dedicated to showing not only is financial education important for our communities, but that show a correlation between credit unions that do offer financial education well and that see increased performance through increased member loyalty, capacity, and ability. The fact that many credit unions aren't measuring this really leaves those programs vulnerable to going away, right? In fact, you can help me demonstrate that. So how many of your credit unions offer financial education? It's great to see. How many of you can tell me the exact dollar figure that that program returned to your credit union last year? No one, right? Because as credit unions, we're really good at doing the good stuff. We just aren't as good at showing how these valuable programs are also having a viable impact on our bottom line. And that's what I wanted to help change. So the first step in my process was to turn one of our current programs into a measurable metric. One way we're doing that at Fiber is by offering certificates to our students following financial presentations. These certificates will incent students to open accounts with us by offering a cash reward. Now, these certificates will also be surrendered when the student opens the account, and will then serve as a reminder to my staff to properly code the accounts so that I can run reports on them later. Our reports will include housekeeping information, such as the total number of accounts open and the average age of member with these accounts. We'll also take a look at the total number of accounts open during a specific time period to ensure that changes and improvements we're making to our program are moving that needle towards greater effectiveness and greater profitability. But we're going to go deeper than just that. We'll also take a look at total and average numbers of accounts per member to see what our wallet share and stickiness with this population looks like. We'll take a look at total and average loan and share balances and point of sale transactions to see how the performance of these members compares with their peers. Ultimately, what this report will allow us to do is to compare the costs associated with these accounts with the revenue generated by these accounts to see how profitable these members are, and what the overall profitability of our program is. We'll even be able to compare the cost of obtaining a member in this method versus our traditional costs. Now, I know this idea is simple, but I believe it's often the simple ideas that are the most revolutionary. We are credit unions because of our unique structure, mission, value, and impact. Financial education lies at the heart of much of that, and of our operating principles, cooperative principles, many of our credit unions' own mission, vision, and value statements. But few of us can articulate what those programs are really bringing back to our bottom line. I've left some information on your tables, which will further explain my ideas and also share some of my research with you. The beauty of this concept is that even if your credit union isn't currently offering financial education, you can easily apply this same concept to measuring your business development programs, community outreach, in-school branches, second chance accounts, and more. By turning our current programs into measurable metrics, we'll gain important understanding of how we do well because we do good. Now, one final thought before I leave you. Imagine a world where we don't do this. In today's environment of increasing regulatory and competitive pressures, credit unions are continually turning resources and budget dollars away from these programs that reflect our very heart and soul, right? We're continuing to feel the strain between balancing short-term costs with potential long-term profits. If you go down that road far enough, I'm afraid we'll end up in a world with a lot of financial institutions and not a lot of credit unions, because these are the differences that make us who we are. Now imagine instead a world where credit unions more confidently and fully engage in financial education and community outreach, secure in the knowledge that it is these things which drive our profitability and which shape our competitive advantage. Imagine the impact that world would have on our communities and on our long-term performance. Like Jeff said this morning, let's be ferocious in our defense of our culture, of who we are. This is who we are, right? That's a world I want to be a part of. That's a world I want to help create. This is where I leave you. Thank you for your votes.
All right, fantastic. Q&A time with Shannon. Let's start with Dee Dee.
Thank you very much. Good to see you here. And congratulations for being on stage today. So assume you're the winner. What do you hope to gain from your CUES scholarship dollars? What comes next?
Thank you. That's a great question. I am so excited to have the opportunity to attend schools like Wharton, Cornell, hopefully finish up with Darden on that third-year program. But I think outside of just the education that I'll gain in those few weeks of experience, the opportunity to engage more with CUES, to engage more with rooms full of people like this will, of course, have a tremendous impact on my career and on my own personal development as well.
Fabulous. Let's go with Matt.
Shannon, love the Sasquatch analogy. That was great. Wanted to ask you, has tracking the ROI at your credit union allowed for more resources being dedicated to that? And how did you go about asking senior management for such?
That's a great question. Thanks. So, of course, I think anytime that you can really show that a program is being profitable, that you understand what it's contributing back to you, is a great way to be able to justify dedicating more resources and dollars towards it. Full disclosure, so most of this process has been developed over the summer, and I actually kick off our financial education season next week with 7 classes of 7th graders. So you are a much easier crowd than they will be. So we're actually gonna start handing out these certificates. This is a brand new program for us, but what I think is important is we have to start somewhere, right? This is gonna take a while to gather the information, but if we don't start now, then a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're still not going to be able to answer that question and really complete this conversation.
Great, and Ashley.
Shannon, congratulations. What's been your biggest personal learning through either the project itself or through the competition?
Thank you. Well, especially in working with Dee Dee, all the finalists have gotten some coaching opportunities with Dee Dee. She kind of asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I didn't really know. This competition has opened my eyes to how much bigger this industry is than just my shop. And I kind of knew that because I'm involved, with with different organizations and things beyond my credit union, but just the opportunities that exist and the fact that, I don't know that I want to be a CEO, but I'm not going to be crazy and say that I don't want to be anymore. I've really learned that growth is possible, that opportunities are going to come. I think that I see myself really moving towards a CMO position or a CXO position, but I've really learned to just open my eyes more to the world that exists beyond and to be ready to take that next step.
Awesome, perfect timing. Let's hear it for Shannon. Thank you.